Get stacked.
Triple threat.
Expected value. Now take what you learn, go out there, and get stacked. What up, Gripsters and random YouTubers? Evan here for Grips.com, continuing with my review of my Sunday Showdown victory last month on Microgaming, where I took down the first place prize of 8,600 euros. If this is your first time watching this video and you haven't watched the previous part, I would encourage you to go back and do so. If you don't want to, I'm not going to make you, but you will get some good information about this tournament, about this network, about the value to be found here. Since I'm such a nice guy, though, I will bring you up to speed on what these little numbers are flashed around the screen. This is my HUD, heads-up display, which gives me statistics about how my opponents are playing, information I can use to my advantage. So the stats tell me what percentage of hands they're playing, how many of them they're raising, how often they 3-bet, how often they fold to 3-bets, how often they 4-bet, how often they c-bet, fold to c-bet, attempt steal, all that good stuff that will help me create a clear picture of what type of player I'm dealing with. Anyway, let's get right back into the action. We have just doubled up pretty much on back-to-back hands to get to a very healthy stack of 20,000 chips, which is about 80 big blinds. We got a raise and a 3-bet from Coco, who I know he was doing a lot of 3-betting at this point, and I said, you know what, I'm going to throw in a little 4-piece, see how he feels about that. And what's really interesting is the math here. There is a 2,225 in the middle, and I'm risking about another 2,600 to get at that. So it only has to work slightly more than 50% of the time to be successful. I'll do the math just to be sure. Yeah, about 52% of the time. And we're dealing with a super wide button range. This guy's stealing at a clip of 42%, which is probably even higher on the button. Oh, we can see it's 57 on the button. And Coco, I just know that this guy 3-bets a bunch. And we see in the small blind, he's 3-betting at 11%, which is pretty high. If you plug that in a poker stove, you'll see 11% is a lot of hands. So we go for the 4-piece and manage to take it down. That's the luxury of having chips, is you can try some of these, higher risk moves, which actually, in terms of like the fluctuations to your stack, the risk really isn't all that high, but it feels like you're risking a lot of chips. But if your timing is good, you'll have a much smoother cruise to the final table, and the risk, whatever, it's just not that big a deal because you're just betting on the fact that your opponent doesn't have a hand. You're not betting on needing to catch a lucky turn card or a lucky river card or not getting sucked out on. And the variance in those spots, I feel, is much lower than that of, an all-in pre-flop situation. Variance of getting a walk with pocket queens is super low, of course. At this point, we need to click through and see why or why not, which hands I will be playing. Okay. Again, we go after Coco here with the 3-bet. Very easy calls off. We don't mind. But Busto Man throws in his 4-piece. He knows what's up, and there's not too much we could do. The price I'm getting laid is pretty good at about 3-1. And if this were an all-in bet, I would definitely be calling it. The only issue is there is still a little bit left to play. And I feel that I'm dominated very often. So although I do have the right price right now against a hand that has me dominated, I may stand to put in a pot size bet after the flop with very little equity, and I didn't want to do that, so I just opted to fold. And we see I did have a dominated hand, but I'm running pretty good in this tournament in terms of smashing boards. That's probably going to be a major factor in why I'm able to take it down. I go for the steal with the Jack-8? No, I didn't, because I respect the fact that although I have a lot of chips right now, so does everyone else at the table. And when everyone else has a lot of chips, they have the luxury of flatting. They have the luxury of 3-betting. And I don't want to be dealing with that stuff when I'm going to be out of position. So rather than opening myself up to that sort of variance, I just continue to play fairly snug ranges in terms of my opening, but I loosen it up a little bit when it comes to 3-betting and cold 4-betting. And the cool thing about that is I can still maintain a pretty squeaky clean image. Yeah, this deep, I definitely like appeal. And that means I'm going to get more credit for having a real hand when I do throw in that cold 4-bet or that 3-bet, because people are going to be like, well, this guy's tight, you know, he's only going to do this when he has a real hand, so I'm not going to expect me to be bluffing as much. Here we see Vanilla is an extremely good player, very highly ranked on pocket 5s, and this guy on the button has a very high 3-bet, but just didn't feel like committing myself. If I 4-bet there, I'm priced in to call off, and I'm not interested in taking a thin spot, a thin edge for half my stack. It's not all that easy to collect chips in a tough field tournament like this. So when you get them, you want to be investing them in spots that you think are going to pay really strong dividends. Here I opted to go with the 3-bet. I think flatting is a perfectly fine option as well. Flatting with a hand like King Queen is usually a pretty good play, especially against someone who has a wide range. If this guy had a tight range, I might even just fold the King Queen straight up to his open. But he was playing loose, so I wanted to get involved. The players behind me are a couple of regs. I think 3 of the 4 are regs, maybe all 4. And had I flatted, it may have been an enticing squeeze spot. I didn't want to open the possibility up for that, so I said, all right, I'm going to play a re-raise pot in position with the lead. Fire my c-bet, and once he peeled on that board, this turn changed nothing, and I didn't think I was going to fold him off whatever he peeled the flop with, so I opted to give up on the hand. I think he ended up having a pair of 8s. And if I kept firing away, he may have to give me credit for actually having that big overpair. And I think with a hand like 8s, he actually would fold. 8s is probably near the bottom of his range here for continuing versus my 3-bet and my c-bet. But people are also very stubborn, especially when they have chips, and they feel like, well, you know, I can take my odds and call and see if this guy's got it or not, because, well, I got plenty more where that came from. So I opted to just shut her down on the turn, take my 6-outer on the river. Didn't catch it, no big deal. Still sitting on 40 big blinds. To open that 6-5 suited under the gun? Yes, I do. And I get it through. That's just me mixing it up a little bit, doing the under the gun steal. Nothing too crazy there. And with Vanilla Vader, what to do? We got 2 kings. We're gonna re-raise that and hope we get played back at. He throws in the 4-piece, and let's see. Once we call, there's 10k in the middle. So if we shove, he'll be getting slightly worse than 2-1. Yeah, I like it. I'm all in. Oh, I click him. I let him put it all in. It probably doesn't make a difference. It's probably just one of them cooler situations. But just in case, I wanted to give him the max opportunity to tool out. Just looking at this sizing now, it's just like so unnecessary. Because once I put in 7,600, and you know, he'll call that, there's 16 in the middle. If he shoves, I'm getting 3-1. I'm obviously never, ever, ever folding here. I'm never 5-bet folding here. So I think that this sizing actually makes it look even stronger, and I'm probably better off just jamming in this spot instead of clicking it really small. Man, it just looks kind of obvious what's going on. I guess not obvious enough, because he's still just saying, oh, I got ace king, I'm taking my equity. And I'm saying I'm taking this 35,000 chip pot. And we're back to having a very large stack. I go for the steal from the reshove stacks, but they do what they do. They reshove. I only need a 50% success rate there. And even if these guys are reshoving really wide, I don't think they're both moving it in with like 25% of hands each, or collectively 50% of hands. So I think it's fine to just go ahead and raise any 2 there. And here with the ace queen, obviously, if pretty much anyone moved it in on me, I am not intending on folding this hand. Ace King, interesting. Just with the flat. Well, that's why I should slow down, right? I'm getting ahead of myself. I apologize. It's been a couple of months since I've made any MTT review videos, so I may be a little rusty, but I'll get back in the swing of things. It's all good. So, couple reasons here with the Ace King. I didn't necessarily want to play a 100 big blind pot with Ace King against an under the gun opener's range. Although he's going to be 4-betting pretty wide, I don't think I can 3-bet this hand to fold it. And you know, I will get some money out of his 4-bet bluffs, but when he 6-bets it in, my Ace King's probably not in great shape. And my stack is so valuable at this stage of the tournament. This is the stage where the blinds are going to start to creep up there. A lot of people are going to be fairly shallow, and there's going to be tons of opportunity for stealing and for re-stealing. So I want to preserve my stack to be able to take advantage of that stage of the tournament, rather than, you know, risking it. Like, the difference between me having 36K and 60K really isn't anything, because I have position on the only other guy who has a ton of chips as is, and I have everyone else covered. So those additional chips gain me no extra leverage, whereas losing, you know, all but 7K of my chips takes away all my leverage, and I just don't want to do that when I'm in a favorable position like this. The other thing was that Vanilla Vader was in the big blind, and I thought he might squeeze it all in. But I know that he's a really good player, and he's not just going to tool out. So me flatting maybe gets him to put it in with a tiny bit wider of a range than he would if I 3-bet. But the main thing was I didn't want to play just a huge pot with Riode Shabani. The last point about this was that if I 3-bet and Vanilla puts it in, Riode can just flat, the action's closed, we're seeing the flop. But when I flat here, if Vanilla shoves and Riode calls, now I can reopen the betting and take him out of the pot. The other thing is, if he does something like this, I can evaluate whether or not I think he has the hand. I think I decided that he ain't got it, and I'm all in. I felt like this click on his part was like, I got a good enough hand that I want to take my equity against the short stack, and I want to knock this other guy out of the pot. It didn't strike me as I got the super nuts, I'm going to trap this guy. I think if he had the super nuts, he might just flat. And he folds. It's a fantastic spot. Not only do we have Vanilla dominated, but we have great odds on our money. Plus we have that dead money, that extra 3K that Rio just put in there. And I think this is the point where I took over the chip lead in the tournament, and I was getting really excited because nothing else was really going my way that Sunday. But suddenly I had a stack, you know, that was a stack that could really make something happen and could lead to a big score. So at this point, with people's stacks getting shallower, we see a 15, a 20, a 30, a 10. I'm going to be stealing a little bit more, as I said, and re-stealing a bit more, but I'm not going to be cold calling all-ins with, let's see what he had since he got called, and okay, just a cooler. A lot of the hands in this particular tournament are just, you know, coolers. They're just setups between the other players, because when you're dealing with a tough field, everyone plays, you know, reasonably well. And that's the huge value in playing large field tournaments where there are tons of satellite players, is that the average player in that field is not going to be playing all that well. And especially when you get deep, people just won't know what they're doing, and they won't know how to play properly. Being super deep in a tournament, they're going to be all nervous, and that might take over, and they might just blow up and do something stupid. Whereas in a really tough field tournament, overall you can expect that most people are going to play pretty well all the way through. They're going to understand the concepts of MTTs and apply them accordingly. And it's a competition of who can like keep their focus better and who can run better. And that's why it's important to seek out those great value tournaments. Anyway, we got aces. We got more important things to talk about than game selection right now. What do? Well, we don't fold. We could 3-bet, and if Muddy thinks that we're full of it, he's going to 4-bet it all in. But if you look behind us, we have a guy with 12 big blinds, and we have a guy with 13 big blinds. Now, if we flat and they shove, there's going to be about 10K. We're almost going to be getting 2-to-1, so they won't expect us to fold all that often, but it becomes a really good chip-up spot for them. And they might ship it in with a wider range of hands than they would if we 3-bet and they're like, oh, I for sure don't have any fold equity. The other thing is, Muddy is playing pretty loose at 29%. Well, that means over 7 hands, I think he's played 3 of them. And now he's opening the cutoff, so he's probably going to have a pretty wide range here, like 25 to 30% of hands. And against that range, most of the time when I 3-bet, he's just going to fold. My hand is so good, is an 80% favorite against anything, that I want to let him see a flop, hopefully pick up some equity and be able to play for his whole stack, where I'm still probably going to be an 80% favorite. Or if he whiffs the flop, well, at least I'll get a C-bet out of him and pick up another, 1,800 chips, 3 big blinds. Whereas if I just 3-bet pre-flop, I'm probably just going to see a fold. Building on top of that, if he actually has a value hand, there are very few flops that are going to come that are going to see him, bet folding that hand or somehow getting away from it. I'm probably still going to get all his money when he has a big hand. So for those reasons, I opt to flat. He C-bets, and again, I just keep the gig going. The charade is on, just in case he has, 2 overs and a gutter that he may not call a shove with, but he may be able to pick up a pair and go broke with that. I think at this point, I put the raise in for 2 reasons. One is that once I call this bet and there's like 16K in the middle and we have 5K behind each, I don't think he's going to expect me to fold for the last 5K. He's probably going to expect me to be calling. So he's only going to bet if he has a value hand. He's not going to keep betting if he has a bluff. Now, if I raise, he's going to call with all his value hands. He's going to fold all his bluffs, but he has to call with his semi-bluffs. He'll be getting the right price. He'll have to call with those semi-bluffs. His flush draws, his straight draws will have to call, and I give myself a chance to get the extra 5,500 chips out of those hands. Whereas if I just call, I let him set the price. He's priced himself in pretty well if he's got one of those draws. And he gets to check fold when he misses, so I just didn't want to give him that chance. So I say, all right, let's play for it all. He says, okay, I got the flush draw and the gut shot, and fortunately we hold up. But we do see that had I 3-bet pre-flop, this hand's going in the muck. And when you have a hand like 2 aces, the last thing you want to do is make your opponent fold pre-flop. And we have Todd Chipman at this stage in the tournament. But we still won't get crazy. I don't know if I would have opened that Jack 10 off. I do decide to open the Ace 5, and well, looks like I shouldn't have. I think into these stacks, it's too early to be getting down with the any Ace open from any position. When we get deeper into the tournament, where we're at like the payout structure and all those sorts of things come into consideration, then opening any ace, and you can really open your range super wide at that point. But at this stage of the tournament, I think we're still a little ways from the bubble. I think we cash when the big blind's around 1,200. So that was just me getting a little chip happy, a little trigger happy, just a little unnecessary. So here we go for the 3-bet again. And one of the benefits about the 3-bet from earlier that didn't work out is just that Riot is going to know that we're capable of 3-betting with less than the nuts, which means we'll get played back at a little bit more. When someone cold 4-bets all in, I would expect them to just have pretty nutted hand, and this is the beginning of the end. You see, we don't win all our all-ins in this tournament. In fact, there's a lot of swinginess that happens, and it made for a good emotional experience. Because I had to really work on keeping my composure, and this was actually only the second Sunday session I'd played, or the second session in all I'd played since getting back from my trip. So I hadn't been playing a ton of poker, and it was a really good test for me to make sure I could keep my cool. Yeah, I think I did a good job with it, but we'll see as I get deeper into the hand history and get to see the hands that I've totally forgotten about to see if I actually played really well or if I actually just boxed it. Here I said, nah, bro, you're not seeing a free flop. Jack it up there. And I'm just clicking through now because with some of the stacks behind, I expect myself to be raising pretty wide. And I don't want to miss any pots that we played. Here I see that board catcher is playing pretty wide range. Again, 2018. Anyone whose VPIP is 20 or greater, you can consider to be kind of loose. If it's between 15 and 20, they're kind of tight aggressive. And if it's under that, they're pretty nitty. The other thing about this spot, I saw that he's opening wide, and I also saw that the stacks in the blind were pretty short. And actually most of the players behind were pretty short, so he wouldn't expect them to continue with too wide a range, which consequently allows him to open with a wide range for stealing. And I got a hand that can flop some top pair as backup. I also just have the bigger stack than him, and I'm effectively leveraging his whole stack. I'm risking 4,200 to put on the pressure of 21,000, and that's a pretty cool thing to do. Also, how strong does it look when you raise from under the gun +1 and under the gun 2 3-bets you? Pretty strong, right? Okay, here with ace king, tough spots. I calculated that I was probably ahead of his range for going all in from the cutoff and made the call. I had him dead, but as I told you guys, this is the beginning of the end. This is when everything falls apart. Good thing I had read that book by Pima Trojan, When Things Fall Apart, and I knew how to handle this situation. Just get back in there and keep on raising. So let's look at this spot. Where are our pot odds here? Okay, it's a different replayer than I'm used to. And I'm gonna have to make some adjustments to the video so you guys can see this in future parts. But we're getting about 1.4 to 1. We have 42%. Listen, when someone reshoves less than 20 big blinds and you have king queen suited and you have the chips to play with that you can afford to make the call, you call, man. You call. Because people are gonna be reshoving with a bunch of aces, they're going to be reshoving with all the pairs, and they're going to be reshoving with some broadways as well. I think this is probably more so the case in the small blind than in the big blind where people can peel. But regardless, you dominate a bunch of hands, and there are only a couple of hands that have you crushed, and you do have blockers to those hands with the queen and the king. So it makes it that much less likely that someone has ace king or ace queen or pocket queens or pocket kings. So I call. And he happens to have one of those few hands that had me in bad shape. But as I said, I read that book. I know how to deal with these situations. You keep throwing your chips in the middle and wait for you to win one of those pots back. And if we look at the sequence of flips that just happened, where I got it in as a big favorite twice, and then I got it in as an underdog once, things just kind of balanced out. Had I won the two where I was a favorite and lost with this one, mathematically it would have been the same as me losing both the times I was the favorite and winning this one. So the nice thing is that over a large enough sample size, the luck does balance out. Now, that's not saying that 3 hits is a big enough sample size, but it's just something worth noting that yes, you're going to run terrible sometimes, but eventually you are going to run good again. So if you are dealing with a downward spell, if you're having some bad swings, recognize that as long as you continue to get in there and make profitable decisions, strong decisions, that you are going to experience a turnaround in your luck and experience an upswing. It's when you allow that luck, that bad luck, that bad run to take you off your game to the point where you start making bad decisions, but blaming it on luck, that you are going to further speed up that downward spiral and actually be the cause of your own bad results, but you won't want to accept that. You'll want to blame it on luck. So, you know, be objective with it and don't focus too much on it. But we're going to end this part with me sucking out and getting back up to 54K. It's been a fun run with the big stack, and we will continue to have the big stack in the next part. So I hope you're as excited for it as I am. Please leave your questions, comments, and feedback below the video. I would love to hear what you have to say. I always learn so much from your guys' wisdom that you share with me, maybe even more than you guys learn from me. And if you're looking to get a hold of Manager 2, since I guess with that being the background of the replayer, that's what we're going to be talking about this week, and you'd like to support the Grips Poker Training Project, please use the link in the video description. And after that, just keep on learning, keep on improving. This has been Evan for Grips.com. I hope you found this video educational and entertaining. Now you know what to do. Take what you learned, go out there, and get stacking.
Yeah, we get it stacking. Grips.com taught you how to get it stacking. The flops I be smashing, the pots I be blasting. Grips.com taught you how to get it stacking. When the main event, man, that could never happen. The Grips.com taught you how to get it stacking. Now you're picking up traction, getting action. Grips.com taught you how to get it stacking.
Stack it up, cash it in, damn I win again. Many friends come to play, cause I'm on the internet. Better yet, I flop the turn and take a chance upon the river. I'll bluff you with the 7-2 offsuit, whatever's clever, call you all in while your chip stacks falling. Better believe the dealer, cause the game just started. Don't know the rules, you bet it all and then you risk it. If you wanna learn it, you should go online and hit up Grips it.
Yeah, we get it stacking. Grips.com taught you how to get it stacking. The flops I be smashing, the pots I be blasting. Grips.com taught you how to get it stacking. When the main event, man, that could never happen. The Grips.com taught you how to get it stacking. Now you're picking up traction, getting action. Grips.com taught you how to get it stacking. Ever since a young cat, want a pocket stack with cash in the fast stack, crammed in the clam clip. Gotta get the action, gotta get it stacking. Dollars on the noggin, want a lot of transactions. Started as a little retarded, now with the knowledge, playing cards, flopping, bombarded cause it was harder than I thought. Then I got on Grips.com, asking and got what I needed to be to me get it stacking. Yeah, we get it stacking. Grips.com taught you how to get it stacking. The flops I be smashing, the pots I be blasting. Grips.com taught you how to get it stacking. When the main event, man, that could never happen. The Grips.com taught you how to get it stacking. Now you're picking up traction, getting action. Grips.com taught you how to get it stacking. Yeah, we get it stacking. Grips.com taught you how to get it stacking. The flops I be smashing, the pots I be blasting. Grips.com taught you how to get it stacking. When the main event, man, that could never happen. The Grips.com taught you how to get stacking. Now you're picking up traction, getting action. Grips.com taught you how to get it stacking. Yeah, we get it stacking. Grips.com taught you how to get it stacking. The flops I be smashing, the pots I be blasting. Grips.com taught you how to get it stacking. When the main event, man, that could never happen. The Grips.com taught you how to get it stacking. Now you're picking up traction, getting action. Grips.com taught you how to get it stacking.